Okay, while we wait, I did want to share, I brought us flowers. So I don't know if you can see them in the little square, but they are some of the last flowers of the season. So those are here with us. And I think we'll go ahead and start. Is that a, yeah? Okay. So again, welcome, Kate and Lori. We had a few others signed up, so if they may come in, trickle in, and we'll just welcome them when they come. So I'm gonna actually walk us through a PowerPoint. My joke was that I don't have any idea if people use them anymore, but it would be helpful to me. So, and this way you get to see some visuals too, which I think is a positive. So, this first page is actually from last year's state championship. So Amanda Bragg is in the center, and she was the representative that went to nationals last year. And then the other folks in the photo, you have guest poets, you have regional coordinators, Chiquita from the Ohio Arts Council, and then Amanda's parents. So just wanted to share that as kind of a, hey, let's celebrate already. Okay. And then we're gonna go through, I'm gonna offer a poem. Since this is about poetry, I wanted to start with a poem. We're gonna do introductions, and one of the things that I wanted each of you to kind of keep in mind is I'm gonna invite you to echo back a word or phrase or line from the poem that is read. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. You might want to jot down, like if there's a line that surprises you or a phrase that just really, like the imagery is really strong for you, that you connect with, just jot that down. So Stephanie's going to introduce the Massillon Museum. We'll talk about the overview of Poetry Out Loud, resources that are available. We'll do some brainstorming as to what the competition could look like on a local level for schools and organizations, ways to support students, and then we'll have a Q&A, and then we'll wrap up the hour. So hopefully that'll, we'll get through everything that we need to get through. So, all right. So the poem, the poetryoutloud.org site has a lot of, like, thousands of poems, and you can search poems by topic, by author, there's all different ways. And then they also have a random poetry, like you hit it and it'll just give you a poem. So I did that a couple times, and some of them were funny. I was like, no, I'm not going to use this one. One was actually enjoyable to read. It was about sleeping and seeing your bed as this thing to celebrate. I decided not to choose that one in the afternoon on a Sunday. So this poem came by and Alberto Rios. This is actually one of my favorite poems by Alberto Rios. So I'll offer it, read it to you, and then again, just if there's a phrase or line that you really like or are curious about, write that down. So the poem is "We Are of a Tribe" by Alberto Rios. We plant seeds in the ground and dreams in the sky, hoping that someday the roots of one will meet the upstretched limbs of the other. It has not happened yet. We share the sky, all of us, the whole world. Together, we are a tribe of eyes that look upward, even as we stand on uncertain ground. The earth beneath us moves, quiet and wild, its boundaries shifting, its muscles wavering. The dream of sky is indifferent to all of this, impervious to borders, fences, reservations. The sky is our common home, the place we all live. There we are in the world together. The dream of sky requires no passport. Blue will not be fenced. Blue will not be a crime. Look up. Stay a while. Let your breathing slow. Know that you always have a home here. We Are of a Tribe by Alberto Rios. And I'll just leave this up a little bit just in case you wanted to grab a line if you didn't have a chance. I'm going to do that. All right. So we'll go ahead and move into introductions. And I would invite each of us to just say our names. If you would like to say your pronouns, you can. The school or arts organization that you come from and the city that you're in. And then echo that line or phrase. And then if you have one burning question that you just need to get out right now, or want to get out right now, feel free to ask that question related to Poetry Out Loud or the Massillon Museum, or yeah. So I didn't think about how to start. I'll go ahead and start, and then I'll just pass it to someone, and then we can just keep passing it around so that everybody goes. So my name is Mary Ruth Camp, she, her, and I am with the Massillon Museum. I am the Poetry Out Loud Northeast Ohio Regional Coordinator. We have been doing Poetry Out Loud at the Massillon Museum for 3 years, and I've been in this role. This is our 3rd year, I should say. And I would echo back probably the whole poem, but the line, "Let your breathing slow, know that you always have a home here." I think that's the line or the phrase that resonated with me today. Yeah, and I don't have any burning questions at this point. So I will pass to Stephanie.
Thank you, Mary Ruth. I'm Stephanie Toole. I am the Education and Outreach Manager here at the Massillon Museum. And it's really wonderful to meet you all virtually or see some of you again. My pronouns are she, her, and a line that resonated with me was, "The dream of sky requires no passport."
And then we'll go ahead and pass to, I think, Kathleen or Kate. You're next on in my little series of boxes.
Hi, Mary Ruth. I'm Kate White, and I teach at Aurora High School. My student participated last year. It was my first year conducting a Poetry Out Loud experience at the school, and I'm going to do it again this year. I feel like I know a little bit more as to the timing and the methodology as far as getting the kids ready. So the line I liked the most was, "We share the sky, all of us, the whole world."
Thank you, Kate. And then next in line is Alex.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Alex Kuhn. I'm the Executive Director of the Massillon Museum. My pronouns are she, her. And like Kathleen, I selected that as one. I grabbed 2 things. That was one of them. And the other was look up, because I had a professor in college who, this is before we all had cell phones, but he was concerned that we all spent too much time looking at our feet and at the ground, and none of us spent enough time looking up at the tops of trees or beyond that. So I've always taken that to heart, and that was a lovely reminder in the poem.
Thanks, Alex. And then Lori, we'll pass to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lori Starling. My preferred pronouns are they, them. I'm actually doing this in conjunction with the Ashtabula Art Center here in Ashtabula, Ohio. This is their first year for them to get involved, and they were very excited. So I'm here to find out more information. I'm going to be possibly teaching some writing courses at the Art Center. So that's really, really exciting. So I've published poetry and a children's book before and all of that jazz. One of my, I mean, it's funny because everyone picked my favorite lines already, but there was one that really stuck out to me that was not mentioned. "The dream of sky is indifferent to all of us, impervious to borders, fences, and reservations." I just really love the intersectionality of everything. So that's why I picked that line. But it's great to meet all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. All right. So really quick before we move on from, can you go back to that one really quick, Stephanie? I just want to say, so we have wonderful judges for our semifinals, and this is one of them. This is Dwayne Dodson. And he will be a judge again this year. So I just, the poets that we have come and judge do present poems. And so that's another benefit that the students get, and all of us actually, because we get to enjoy poems throughout the evening from students, and then original poems from poets. And of all of our poets, I would say Dwayne has the the stage presence. Just like, what is the word? He captures everybody's attention. So yeah, hopefully I'm playing with the idea of having him help with our student workshop, just because he would have a lot to offer the students if we have students signed up by then. So, all right, thank you, Stephanie. All right, and then Stephanie's gonna just speak about the Massillon Museum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ruth. Hello again, everyone. So for those of you who haven't been to the museum before, and for those of you who have, we would love to welcome you and hopefully your students here as a resource and a fun place to visit, get some outside of the classroom field trips in this school year. So we are an art and history museum founded in 1933 here in Massillon, Ohio, about an hour south of Cleveland. We are open free to the public 6 days a week, Tuesday through Sunday. And then the museum has 3 floors of galleries featuring permanent and temporary exhibitions. We often focus on regional history and artworks, so there's always a connection for your classrooms or programs. In terms of current and upcoming main gallery exhibitions, which are often a big draw for visitors here, currently on display is Gilding Northeast Ohio, Fashion and Fortune, 1870 to 1900. The exhibition is guest curated by Brian Centrome, and it features fashion from our permanent collections, as well as those of the Western Reserve Historical Society in Cleveland, and loans from various other regional museums. And we are also very pleased to present original costumes designed for the HBO series, The Gilded Age. So I encourage you to visit that before it comes down. October 13th is the last day, so you still have a month. It's a very cool exhibit. Looking to the rest of the school year, the annual Juried Stark County Artists Exhibition will open on November 2nd and be on view through January 12th. And that features artwork by artists who are currently or who have previously lived in Stark County or who currently work in Stark County. After that exhibition closes, it's always a fun time for the education department because we get to open Celebration in Art. That's the museum's annual K through 12 exhibition. We usually have more than 200 students featured from about 20 schools in Western Stark County, and that's on view for February 2nd through March 2nd. And then taking us to the end of the school year will be Sight Unseen International Photography by Blind Artists. And that'll feature photographs taken by some of the world's most accomplished artists who are completely or legally blind. And in terms of educational resources here at the museum, so we offer free guided tours and field trips for groups of 8 or more. Those can be in person, or we're also pleased to offer virtual tours as well if you can't make it down to the museum. We're able to tailor those to whatever format you would like, focus on any standards that you'd like us to focus on. You have the opportunity to add an art activity for a low cost. It's $3 if your students reside in Massillon City, or $5 per child if they don't. And we can often add ceramics programming as well, and that price varies, but again, it's a nominal fee. We offer busing and substitute teacher reimbursement on a first come, first served basis. And you can learn more about that at our website, massillonmuseum.org/tours. Kaylin, who's my assistant, she's currently at the front desk, so you can't see her right now, but she handles the coordination for all of our tours, so she'd be really excited to work with each of you. And we also have a number of educator resources and lesson plans available on our website on our educator resources page. You can also access our virtual archives and our virtual museum tour as ways to use the museum's collections in your classroom and share them with students outside the classroom as well. Many of our staff members are also part of the Museum Speakers Bureau, so we're able to give in-person or virtual presentations on topics ranging from Civil War history in the region to 20th century female photographers. And finally, we offer a large variety of classes and workshops here at the museum for all ages. So whether you're interested in recommending programming to your students, or if you yourself are interested in taking our classes and workshops, we would love to have you here. One poetry-related program that's coming up next quarter that would be of particular interest for you is our Poetry Open Mic on December 14th, which will be hosted by our very own Mary Ruth Camp and Expanding Circles Collective, LLC. So you can read your own or your favorite poet's writing, or you can just attend, and it's open to all ages. If you'd like to learn more about everything that I talked about and more about tours, classes, workshops, check out our website, massillonmuseum.org. You can sign up for our biweekly e-blast, and you can follow us on social media as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So we hope to see you here soon.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I would say too, like for the students and the families and you all too, when you come for the semifinals, because I believe that all of you are going to be signed up and have students coming, that it's a great the area is a great area to come to, like spend the whole day and just get to know the museum that day too. So I just wanted to next, I pulled a few quotes from actual students who have been involved in Poetry Out Loud, and they touch on, from their own words, how they have benefited. So I just want to read those really quick. So the first is Kate Merton from Maryland, and she says, "Poetry Out Loud has allowed me to meet so many amazing people. More importantly, I have learned how to express myself. After competing in Poetry Out Loud for 4 years, I have developed a love for poetry. In understanding the ways authors have expressed themselves, I have learned to help others understand who I am." And then Rachel Magosha, who was a 2021 national champion from South Dakota, says, "Being a part of Poetry Out Loud has made me understand beauty and its complexity, but also beauty in the simple and mundane aspects of our lives. By being able to get to know these different poets and their different poems, it has really helped me understand the multitude of perspectives that exist in this world, and I think that's a really beautiful thing." So I thought those were very to the point and very encompassing of all the different things that Poetry Out Loud can, and just poetry in general, can offer us. So thank you to those students for articulating. And then I'm going to do, you're going to get to hear me speak a little bit here about, in some of this you will already know, but I just want to kind of go over Poetry Out Loud, like why do we offer it? Why would we offer it to our students? The history, a little bit of the history, and then talk about some of the resources that are available. So the students already, mentioned some of the reasons why we would offer Poetry Out Loud. I would add, and some of this comes from the poetryoutloud.org website, but also from my own experience interacting with students. So it introduces students to poetry and the richness that it can add to our lives. And so they spoke to some of that. What else can poetry give us? It can give us a way to process and understand our lives, a way to see through another's eyes or life, a way to hold and grapple hard things. It connects us with others throughout history, cultures, life experiences, and like I think Kate, the one student, said, a place to develop and use our own voices. It's also an opportunity to develop self-confidence and learn how to adapt. And I want to just share one small story. One of the students that has come to the semifinals went on to state, and I'm not going to share their name, but went on to state and had 3 poems ready for state, but was a little bit nervous about their 3rd poem. So they went up, did their first recitation, did a good job, went, second round, went up, and the 2nd round struggled a little bit with their recitation. And so after that kind of threw the student off a little bit. And so we did a little bit of talking. The student came up to me and asked, can I change my 3rd poem? I'm not comfortable with this 3rd poem. Or maybe I don't know that I really want to go for the 3rd round. And so we talked through just the reality that once a student chooses their poems, those are the poems that they have to recite for the competitions. And that everybody in the room was there to support them and encourage the student to do their best, the best that they could for this, the final recitation. And so, the 3rd recitation cycled through and the student decided to go up and recited their 3rd poem and did a phenomenal job. And so this was an opportunity for this student to work through what I think we all deal with, some of that like negative self-talk and like kind of being able to walk yourself through that and get over it so that you can move into the next stage or the next step. And that's a hard thing. And so I think that's a beautiful story just to kind of show on an emotional level how Poetry Out Loud can help. So it builds public speaking skills, develops a connection to poetic history and lineage as well. Poetry has been around since the beginning of words, the poetic imagination. It helps us to see in different ways. So those are just some of the reasons. And I know you each probably have others that you could voice as well. Poetry Out Loud, I think, is also a very good program in that the way that it has been set up. PoetryOutLoud.org, the National Endowment for the Arts and Poetry Foundation, have created a lot of resources, and they're all free. They're on the website. And so we're not individually recreating or trying to come up with the content. So it's a program that they even provide lesson plans. I am not a teacher in a school setting, so I have not dug into those, but I have looked at them, and it looks like, that there's some really good information there. And then it's also set up to be flexible. So for each organization in school to be able to structure it in a way that serves them, which I think is also, like, they have certain criteria that you have to follow, but it allows you to, within that, have a flexible program. So the Poetry Out Loud is a partnership between the National Endowment for the Arts, the Poetry Foundation, and then here in Ohio, the Ohio Arts Council. And then each region, and it would have been interesting to put that map in, which I didn't. I think there are 5 regions, is that right? 6 regions. Okay, thank you, Stephanie. I was trying to count the colors on the map. So there are 6 regions, and the Northeast Ohio region, the partner is the Massillon Museum, but then each region has an arts organization that coordinates for that region. So the program, the way that it flows, you start with your local level competition. So that would be like Kate at your school or Lori with the arts organization. You would have your local competition, inviting students to participate in that. And then a student from each of your competitions would come to the semifinals, the regional semifinals. So then we hold that competition at the Massillon Museum, and it's on November 10th, which I'll cover later. But and that is a fun day of recitations, poetry readings. We have music, live music, snacks. You get to meet other people who enjoy poetry. And then from the semifinals, the regional semifinals, students will be evaluated on their recitations, and then a student will go to the state finals, which is held down in Columbus. And depending, and I don't have these numbers memorized, but depending on how many students the regional has, determines how many students can go to state. So we typically have only sent 1 student from Northeast Ohio to the state competition, but there are some regions who just happen to have a larger group of students, and so they've been able to send more than 1 to the state finals. And then at the state finals, which is also a fun event, and I think this year will be even more enjoyable. This year is the 20th year for Poetry Out Loud, and so I think they're planning some celebratory events for in conjunction with the state finals. But the student who has the highest score at regionals would go to state, and then state to nationals. So that's kind of the way that the competition is set up or structured. And I just want to catch my breath here. So the resources, I would say that PoetryOutLoud.org is going to be the most helpful resource, in that that's where the students can find their poems. For you, as you structure your competition, if the needed forms that you like, I will send these to you as well. But if you are looking for a certain form, they're all available to be printed on the PoetryOutLoud.org website. And then Ohio Arts Council website, which I have these listed at the end, so we'll make sure you have the websites. But Ohio Arts Council is where you would register. So the first thing you're going to do is register your organization or school, and that's on the Ohio Arts Council website where you register. And then you have our website, the Massillon Museum website, which has resources like Stephanie had talked about, but also has our Poetry Out Loud page has all of the dates that are pertinent to our region. So it's a good resource as well. And actually, yeah, I guess I did put the registration, but it's a link. So we'll make sure to share it with you in an email after the meeting. So I think that's all I want to say at this point about Poetry Out Loud. And then we're gonna move on to, yeah, so imagining how your individual competition could look. And at the end, I'm going to just share a couple examples or ways that it could be embodied. But then, I don't know, Kate, if you have anything you want to say, feel free to pipe in or step in and share as you did it last year. Even if it's like, oh, I wish I would have known that or done this, or what kind of support you had, in your school, that kind of thing, or how you structured it. So some examples of ways that it could be structured is that a school could decide, so the English language arts program could decide to have all their freshmen do poetry out loud. So every class has a competition for the ninth graders, and then a student from each of those classes goes to the school competition, like the final competition. And from that competition, then they send a student to the semifinals. So that's one way it could be done. You could also have a teacher who invites their students, and it's an optional thing for the students, and they have a smaller group of students. Like, I think you have to have 2 students, so you could have, even if you had one student who was interested and one student that kind of was interested in, you could convince that student to participate. As long as you have 2, you can have a competition. And so, it doesn't have to be this school-wide thing. It can be a smaller group of students who just are interested in the poetry and want to be able to participate in this way. You could find, I don't know, some schools I'm sure have groups of volunteers that like to plug in, or a group of teachers maybe that would want to do it as an after school like poetry club. So that would be an option. It wouldn't actually have to be in the classroom. It could be after school, and then you have a competition there with those students. Or, and this is one thing that we're looking at doing, like the emphasis has been kind of turned towards arts organizations in the last couple of years. So a teacher could partner with an arts organization, say it's not a competition you could have at your school, or there aren't teachers that are available at this point. An arts organization could organize with the school to provide the opportunity for the students, either in conjunction with the school or separately. The arts organization could offer the opportunity to students in the region from multiple schools. So as long as the schools themselves aren't competing. So those are just some examples of how it could look, from classrooms, multiple classrooms to 2 students. Yeah. So I guess at this point, if Kate, there's anything that you would want to just talk, mention as far as your experience.
I think the main thing I would say about my experience is that the students needed a lot of time to memorize their poem. And I had misunderstood the dates because I was looking at a regional versus the Massillon Museum competition. So I had to speed along my students as to getting the competition in. So when my finalist made it to the second round, she had to memorize a poem in a week, and she's a senior and she had a lot of things going on, and she thought she was fine, but she was, I knew she wasn't fine, but it's her choice to do things the way she does them. So this year I'm just going to start a little bit earlier with the students before I I have a speech class, and then my partner who does this with me has a drama class. So for us, we have our two classes competing during an A time in school, where it's a 90-minute, either a time where students can get extra help with teachers, or the school can have school-wide events. So we had the principal, assistant principal, some teachers, and then we had some students watching. So it was a pretty nerve-wracking experience, but since we had 90 minutes, we had to limit our number of contestants to, well, we had small classes, so I think there were maybe 35 we could get in within 90 minutes. But if we have bigger classes this year, we're going to have to do a first round and a second. I did offer it to all the sophomore teachers, hoping that they would get interested, but they were overwhelmed and didn't want to add one more thing to their plate. I didn't think it was that big a deal, but that's okay. It works well in my speech class, so that's what we're doing. Yeah, if there are any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But I think the big thing is having kids pick poems that really are connections to them, and then figuring out why they like those poems and how they would best use their voices to show the meaning. I had them write on their poems, like annotate, kind of like scoring a script, where they would pause, where their inflection would change, and then teaching them different tools for memorizing, using the voice app and recording themselves several times so that then they could recite in the car. And or I said, well, you're getting dressed in the morning, you just continually say your poem with yourself reading the poem. So that was the hardest thing, is getting them to memorize the poems, because I don't know that my students last year maybe were different than this year, but they were not big on memorizing a whole lot. So, they're busy.
Thank you, Kate. I'll just open it if there are questions. Like, Lori, if you have any questions, or if Stephanie or Alex, you think of any questions for Kate or for me related to or from our conversations with Chiquita, like if there are other ways that this could we could imagine how these competitions could happen.
I just appreciate Kate's feedback, because the timeline was semi-abbreviated last year, and we were sort of playing catch up too. So that I appreciate you acknowledging that, and we know it caused some strain. We're hoping to get further out ahead of it now that we think we've settled into what the new time frame is for the competitions, given that they're not straddling the calendar year as they have before. And I also appreciate you extending the invitation to other teachers to participate. And we certainly understand all of the challenges with scheduling and content teachers face. But I think advocating within the school, so it's not just you, I think is a really smart idea. I think that's something that we can suggest as well to other educators or facilitators who are working with us. I think that's a great idea, so that they have a support system internally too. That's important.
Oh, I did have one thought, if I could mention it. On the 20th, when your judge is offering the student workshop, Dwayne Dodson, I really enjoyed him last year. He was great with his recitation, and your party was phenomenal. Even though there were only 2 kids competing, it was an event. So I really appreciated the music and all of that other fanfare for the kids, and the support when Rebecca made mistakes. That was great. I don't think she felt too nervous. It's like, well, I did my best. But just a thought, if your student workshop was on a school day, I would definitely take my field trip with my students and bring them down to the Massillon Museum. Whether they would drive an hour, I doubt they will. So that's the only thought I had. I think it's a great resource, and kids who are closer would probably be more interested in doing that, is my guess, but I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, thank you, Kate, for
Great
that
point.
feedback. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing, like, we're not in the school systems, so it's helpful to hear from teachers what actually makes sense with your schedules. So thank you. Yeah. Just gonna jot that down. And just to talk a little bit about schedule, then I did want to mention just a little bit. And I did want to welcome, I think Jenna just joined us, so I want to welcome Jenna. Welcome. So we'll make sure to share, we're recording this meeting, so we'll make sure to share it, and you'll get anything that you missed. Yeah, okay. So about the potential ways that you could do the schedule, and it's interesting in light of what you just said, Kate. So in the teacher guide, they give one example for a 3-week layout for the competition. So the first week, students would explore the anthology, choose their poems, read and discuss poems as a group, talk about and model effective and ineffective recitation practices. And in light of what you said, I'm looking at this and going, that's a lot to do in 1 week, especially if you only have them, for one session in a week. That sounds like something you could do, if you had them every day for a week. I'll still go ahead and just describe this layout, but so that would be week 1. Week 2 would just be allowing students to practice with each other, hold practice contests, and then also offer writing experiences so that they can, like you had mentioned, annotating on their poems. They could, one of the things, and I think this would be harder than it sounds maybe, but rewriting the poem in their own words, so ways to use writing so that they can interact with the poems that they're choosing to memorize. It helps them to get to know their own voice as well as understand the poems. And then week 3, they describe as being the week that you would have the competition. So that's like rammed into 3 weeks, right? Which does feel a little too full. And so, yeah, could you speak a little bit like how, so you felt, I mean, because of the time frame and the switch last year, like what would feel like a comfortable pace as far as in a school setting? Do you have an idea, a sense for that? Or
I think just to get, especially it was the second poem that was the killer, I think, because she just wasn't quite, that was,
yeah,
because I was like rushing them to memorize the first poem. I didn't want everyone to feel they had to do it for the second poem. And then she had like less than a week to learn it. And it was really hard with, especially high school. We have a lot of students who participate in AP classes, and my speech class just is not the highlight of their day where they need to stress about, putting all their time. So that's why I'm going to introduce the poetry section earlier so that they have more time, and then it's spread out. So it's not just a week of memorizing. It's all right, this week we're going to start our memorizing and then we're going to continue refining, but I'm teaching other things in between. But I would say at least 2 to 3 weeks for the memorization process would be helpful for the kids. And then the ones who are doing a really great job, I would probably tell them to start memorizing a second poem, to put it in their pocket so that they can be more prepared because Rob and I are having the competition, what works for us right after first quarter. So that'd be towards the end of October, but then they'll need a second poem a couple weeks later. So maybe to give them the heads up, if, you're doing a great job, I think you should start memorizing. And then especially that second poem, it doesn't have to be super long. Tamia's poem was not a long poem. And last year, boy, she was amazing. So even a shorter one can be just as impactful as these long poems that some of the kids pick. So that's just another thought I have about that.
yeah, which I think that speaks to really taking time to pick out the poems, which it does take time. I mean, I love to like go down poetry rabbit holes, but I'm also not doing it for a class. I'm doing it in my free time. So yeah, I think spending time so that you're actually picking the poems, the students are picking the poems that really resonate with them, and maybe being strategic, like you're saying, like they could have one that's longer, but they definitely, I think there is and I don't have that right at my fingertips, but there is a criteria where they need to have one poem at least that's 25 lines or more. So they do have to have one that's longer, but the other ones don't need to be. And Stephanie, do you have that right at your fingertips?
Yes, I have it pulled up because I was going to mention, just
Yeah.
to emphasize the importance of picking poems from the Poetry Out Loud anthology on the website. There is also a paper version that I think you might have to request access to, that we can request access to. They're trying to go digital to help the environment. So you want to choose exclusively from that anthology on poetryoutloud.org, which we link to on our website. OAC also links to on their website. And you're only required as a school or arts organization to have one round if you're just doing like a classroom or small group kind of setting. They recommend doing 2 rounds with 1 poem each round if you're doing a school-wide or organization-wide competition. And then you could choose to do all 3 rounds, which is what a finalist or semifinalist who's going to states would have to do all 3 poems. Same thing if they go to nationals, they would have to do all 3 of their poems. And at the state and national finals, students have to have those prepared. One must be 25 lines or fewer, and one must be written before the 20th century. And one poem may be used to meet both criteria and maybe the student's 3rd poem. So all those regulations are on the website, our website, OAC's website. And again, Mary Ruth will link to them.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie, for pulling those. Yeah. We're already talking about, go ahead and move on to the next slide. So we're already talking about ways to support students. Yeah, ways to support students. So I did want to, we're not getting into depth on this, but I did want to mention, so the poetryoutloud.org website does have extensive videos and information on the evaluation criteria for the recitations, but this is just the list. So what the judges are looking for: physical presence, voice and articulation, interpretation, evidence of understanding, which are very linked, and then overall performance, and then accuracy is the other piece. And so again, Kate, you said you had the principal, vice principal help judge, and so what I can speak to is at the semifinals, we usually have 3 judges who are evaluating on the physical presence through the overall performance. And then we'll have 1 judge who just pays attention to accuracy and is also a prompter, which I think is wonderful that is a part that is welcome. So, if a student gets stuck, they can look at the prompter and ask for just a little something to like trigger them to be able to start again. So, yeah. So at the school level, I think you could have 1 to 2 judges on the evaluation criteria, and then 1 accuracy, just so that there's someone who's paying attention to the poem being recited in the way it was written.
Yeah, I had, just to clarify, I had 3 judges who were judging the performance, and then the drama teacher was the line helper, and then the person who was looking for correctiveness, she needed full concentration on just annotating where the students made their mistakes so that we could then add up and subtract the score. And then I ran the event at bringing the kids up onto the stage. So it really took 6 of us.
Okay.
To do that.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Kate.
I think that's an important thing to also have us make mention. And that's part of that support network. And the teachers know that they really do need 5 or 6 people on that day to help.
Yeah. So just talking through like some basic ways to support the students, from introducing them to the resources, the poetryoutloud.org, and discussing how to choose their poems. Like they're ultimately choosing their poems, but helping them identify like what are the things that they're looking for, what are the things that they're passionate about that they might look for in the poems, offering the tools for memorization and recitation, which I think those of you who are in theater, have so many tools. Like I think those of us that, well, I will speak for myself, I could learn from. So utilizing those tools, the Poetry Out Loud website, .org website has lots of videos, recitation videos. And so going through those and discussing them, to give them examples of what does a really strong physical presence look like, or does this recitation do they seem to understand the poem that they're reciting? That can be a helpful resource. And then just spending time discussing the poems. Kate, you mentioned this, helping them, do they understand the poem? How do they understand it? What does it mean to them? Inviting them to write. We talked about that, using that as a tool to support them. And then one other thing that I think is important, just as a human being, is potentially offering them, and this is maybe part of theater, I don't know, I was never in theater, but like breath practices and things that they can use to, like, when they're gonna be getting up on stage and they're feeling those nerves, like what are things that they can do or practice to kind of help themselves feel a little bit calmer. And if you have someone on staff who has those, those teaches those techniques, or a yoga instructor that does meditation locally that would want to be able to come in, or, I don't know how all that works as far as being able to come into the classroom, but there are also lots of resources online too for that. One example that I actually was practicing before this is just the very simple box breath. So, you breathe in to the count of 4. You can choose whatever count you want, which that fits with your breath, but breathe to the count of 4, inhale to the count of 4, and then you hold for a count of 4, and then you release to a count of 4, and then you hold again to a count of 4 at the bottom of the breath. So that's just one little example, but that can help with our nerves, but it can also help with that physical presence in that offering of the poem, because you're much more then able to be aware of when to pause, how to use the breath as a way to present the poem. And then just really encouraging them to practice. I loved the voice recording. I use that a lot for many things, to hear and to listen to it back, so that they can actually be listening and going, oh, didn't like how I said, how I said that word or that phrase. And then also, if they have, friends who are willing to practice with them, or family members, just encouraging them to practice with whoever they feel safe, asking for feedback from. Yeah, so I think we'll go ahead or is there anything else that anybody else wants to offer at this point? I think we might be even moving into Q&A, so I guess, yeah. So we can just open it up to any questions that you might have specifically to your kind of, setting, or questions you have for us, suggestions you have, if you've done it before. Are there any questions?
Hey, Mary Ruth, it's
Hey,
Jenna. I have
Jenna.
a quick
Yeah.
question. Hi,
Yeah.
everybody. So sorry for my tardiness. We had another work function today that ran over. I apologize. But I'm happy to be here. This is a question that probably only applies to me because, we're trying to get this in the Juvenile Justice Center. Just because of timing and everything, and with my school, my high school that I teach at, I'm going to parallel the program in my high school, how we modify it for the Juvenile Justice Center. So that way we're like working, in tandem in 2 different but similar demographics, to be honest with you, but 2 different settings.
Yeah.
Where we can maybe share more information about the students, where we do have access to get permission to share that. In doing that, even though it's just not going to align with the national program, would reporting back to you or keeping records of what happens and the outcomes be helpful at all to anyone? And if it would be, what kind of statistical information would it be good for us to collect that may be helpful to, you know, agencies other than ourselves? Like, we know what we need, but if we're going to do this, we're going to have a pool of probably about 100 students. So that may be a significant number that we could pull some data from. So that's my question. Is there anything we could collect on behalf of Poetry Out Loud in general, Northeast Ohio, that would be helpful?
For the purpose of reporting to the Ohio Arts Council, I can say that, and Stephanie, please chime in, knowing how many students, although I think is that something that comes through on a form that you receive, Mary Ruth, the number of students who participated at the school
Yeah,
level?
I think Jenna, I think one of the biggest things that will be helpful is registering, even though you're not going to be able to follow the program exactly the way that the rest of the schools do. If you register on the Ohio Arts Council website, you do plug in some statistics there that will help for both the Northeast Ohio and Ohio Arts Council. Yeah, and then Alex, sorry, thank you.
No, that's okay, but Jenna, were you saying that you're thinking of running two parallel programs in tandem, the one that we've talked about, and then one at the high school?
Yes, but just because of teacher availability, et cetera, we won't be able to do the full program at Lincoln West High School.
Gotcha.
But I want to get them involved in it
Yeah.
as a possibility for the next, you know, season, next round. And being that we have, like I said, the students at my school are similar in demographic to the students in the Justice Center. We can run it the same time as them, because our students, we would be able to share information. So if we wanted to, you know, show them, or let's have the kids in this Justice Center listen to a recording of one of the kids, you know, from the
Yes.
Lincoln West High, that sort of thing. So we might be able to, you know, enhance the Justice Center program a little bit more using that. You know, again, I have no idea how it will work in the outcomes, but I think it's worth giving it a try and running them at the same time. We may come upon something in the road that's like, oh, hey, we could do this together, or, you know, whatever. And again, I really don't know what that is, but
But I love that thought process. And then students or faculty from Lincoln could certainly come to the student competition as well, and then see for themselves how it all culminates, and perhaps gain inspiration from
For
that,
the
or
summer.
see the space, because that's something that can be very disarming as well. You know, once you get comfortable in the space that is, you know, otherwise can be an unknown. We can show video, which we will in the student workshop, and photos, but being in a space is a different thing. It's comforting to have that experience.
yeah, one exciting thing that inspired me, this, just thank you for indulging me for 30 seconds. One of the custodial engineers at the high school, Mr. Darius, has popped into drama class and watched the kids doing the Shakespeare. And he's like so impressed with the kids, because he's one that was like, I didn't even think these kids could like read a book, let alone memorize a Shakespeare monologue, because they act sometimes in a way that is, so he wants to learn more about Shakespeare. He wants to hear more. So we want to like bring him in as kind of like a judge in the competition and work with the students along the way. Like just pop in and out and give his feedback. You know, he's like, I have no experience with any of this, but I'm like, you obviously, the Shakespeare spoke to you in some way. You're an audience member, so you do have, so that's really cool too, because I think he's going to, it's really making him happy that we like, oh, we want you to be a part of this process as well.
That is so cool. That's a great story.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna. Well, and I would piggyback, Alex, on what you said. Like, I would encourage, even if you know of any other teachers, like Kate, you had said, you know, you had invited some of the teachers, if they can free up the Sunday of the semifinals to come just experience it, I think that is a way to catch the excitement. So I would encourage that for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have refreshments as well, so.
And a museum, yes, yes. And wonderful
Oh, yes, I
museum
know, but
people.
you know,
Yes.
sometimes food and cookies might be more exciting to kiddos or, you know.
That's true.
Yeah,
And then
refreshments
once they're
count.
here.
Yes. All right. Well, go ahead and go to the final. It's just, yeah. So, and we'll send this information in an email again, but poetryoutloud.org. Ohio Arts Council is oac.ohio.gov. The massillonmuseum.org is our website. POL at massillonmuseum.org is the website where you can contact myself and our team. And then I have the museum phone number and also my phone number if you have questions. You can contact us with any questions that you might have as you're trying to get this going for the season. So we just want to thank each one of you for being here. It's exciting to imagine each of you going out now to your areas and getting students excited and providing this program and just poetry in general to them. So, yeah.
Did anyone?
Thank you for hosting and offering this workshop to all the students. I wish more schools would be interested in getting participating. It's really not that difficult. Like finding the judges was the hardest part, but I don't know.
Kate, we might contact you to invite you to do like a really small video asking you questions so that you can tell other teachers as a teacher what you
Sure.
just said. So,
Okay, thank you.
Before we part ways, we do have to announce our gift basket winner. So that was one of our perks of registration, which is what I'm sure drew you all here today. So we have here a Massillon Connection book, a Maya Angelou anthology of poems, a complimentary family membership to the Massillon Museum, 2 Rhythms tickets for this Thursday's concert with Don Dixon, a gift card to the museum gift shop, Originalities, and a Massillon Museum belt bag. And the winner that I had drawn was Kathleen White. So we can either mail this to you or we'll arrange with you separately. But if you're coming to the museum, perfect, or we can arrange to ship everything to you. So we'll be in touch.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Great.
thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending.
Yeah. And we'll be in contact. We're available.
Okay, we'll see you in November.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
everybody.
Thanks.
Great, thank
Thanks,
you.
Jenna, for coming, and Lori and Kathleen.
Thank you.
Have a great day,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Enjoy your Sunday.